I have been largely ignorant about race relations here in the West. When I went through my first experience of institutional racism, I appealed to my cousin, whose legal advice I needed. She had lived in England for 17 years, I for 14, and when I described the situation to her, she replied, "Now at last you know what it is like being black in this country." What had I missed? When I moved to Britain from Kenya, I was happy to be leaving behind tribal conflict and paradigms, and having been educated in a British school and learnt about, transcendental values of liberalism, I saw an open, free, diverse country. From the political leaders at the top to the very people welcoming me into the country and at university, I saw people so far removed from the legacies of racism and colonialism and all the sort of associations we had with that country. I was valued for being different. I was part of an institutional, I was part of an institute as a society, I should say, that had, even in its national law, uh, sort of statutes to prevent racism. People found guilty of discrimination would be instantly dismissed from their jobs, for example. And at the top, there was this glorious principle of political correctness, where even speaking in discriminatory terms was an offense. Basically, I instantly felt safe, even safer than I was in Kenya, and even more valued. Kenya is a country where your name and your accent gives away what tribe you're from, and at almost every social interaction, from entering the bus to joining the local football team, and all this has palpable consequences that are hardly ever positive. And I'd moved away from that to a world where people wanted you in their groups and company because you were different. More importantly, these sentiments, and when I moved to England, were genuine. They were backed up by law rather than expressed through it. And this left an impression that is with me until today, and it will prevail in my regard to how people perceive race and differences in Britain. The warmth and love of the British people was so infectious that I too stopped seeing the world through the eyes of race, and it sort of put into perspective all the legacies of colonialism and stuff. In Kenya they still talked about racism, and I thought, actually, no, Britain has moved on from that. In fact, I would often say when coming back to visit my family, if you want to see real racism, look at yourselves, who slaughter each other in the name of tribe at every elections, or even look at countries like America, where they just shoot black people freely, sometimes with impunity. Britain was clearly better, or at least I felt it was better for me, and still do. I still have these views, and even after my recent eye-opening experiences, I still believe a society here is far fairer and far more open and liberal. But what my cousin was saying was that I just had not seen the other side. There is another side. I thought that black people in Britain were advancing causes of equality as a way of tightening the loose ends in education and law regarding equal treatment. No, there is genuine injustice, serious injustice, and far more of it than I imagined. And in some ways, it is even the norm. What is worse, racism today occurs under the impression of equality. The same managers who uphold equality laws, preach equality when training their staff, emphasizing it in their PR videos, are sometimes the very managers who deliberately overburden their black workers so as to show them to be incompetent, who launch senseless, baseless, and even false inquiries or accusations into their black employees to put them in their place, who ensure that enough is done to ensure that complaint procedures are less effective against them, and in many cases ignore the exceptional work done by some of their black employees that would set them up so obviously for promotion. In my case, this happened at a university in London, one of the most liberal institutions in one of the most liberal cities on earth. I therefore asked myself, what is the problem? Is it the lack of legal protection? There are almost too many anti-discriminatory laws. Laws of political correctness are almost suffocating. And people, black or otherwise, are getting sick of them. Besides, people are clever. They can express their vice while ensuring that they do not break the laws. Many people just know how to play the game. Is it the lack of representation in key institutions? Well, thanks to these laws, black people are increasingly, if not yet proportionally, finding their ways to the top of key institutions in politics, the police, the media, the law. Is it that black communities themselves have done evil in society? Well, apart from the problems of crime and drugs associated with black communities, which the wider public generally accepts as caused by economic factors rather than anything inherent in race, I cannot find anything else in black communities that people might have grievance about. I believe at last that I recognize the heart of the problem of racism, however it is manifested. It is ridiculously simple, and yet has taken me a while to recognize. In being black, people simply see me a certain way. I'm not talking about, the visual or audible differences, of course. I'm quite proud of these myself. Or, well, to be honest, I don't care, but, they're certainly not negative. But there's something else in the domain of value that racists see, even when doing no harm and doing all the other good that's required by the law to do. I can only express it in this way. In being black, some people do not see me as either worthy of things that they're entitled to, or just not capable of certain things. This is why they feel threatened when we just do ordinary things, do some of these things well and apply, for promotions, or feel disturbed by interracial relationships or anything else. But if some people literally do not see it, that when two people apply, for example, a promotion, one is black, one is white, they just don't see the black person as worthy or more as worthy because they are black, and yet feel obliged by some law to be as fair as possible when sometimes I ask, what has the law achieved? It makes things fair, yes, but that's not the problem of racism. It is one of perception. Therefore, the law does not eradicate racism. The best outcome it can hope for is the prevention of violence and discrimination in institutions. And this is good, but it is not the crux. Deep down, somewhere in the racist heart and mind, is something about being black that, I'm still trying to put my finger on. I need a bit of help. Because if there's something about me that causes offense, my instinct is to eradicate it and live in harmony with others. I don't want to offend people. And I, somewhat humorously, just need to go through a certain list. Is it my curly hair? I mean, I know I don't like it sometimes, and it is impossible to make look uniform, and it's very difficult to cut, and just tough. It gives me lots of problems. But wait, for generations, we black people have been doing everything to make our hair as white as possible. Excessive combing, chemical relaxing and perms, weaves and wigs of straight hair, not to mention what it takes to maintain these appearances. And yet this never seemed to get, people to like or to be less racist. In truth, I don't think it had anything to do with hair at all. Is it the way that black people dress? Now, my friends very lightheartedly associate blackness with rappers, for instance. And if this is a problem, then may I say I completely understand. I cannot stand the way some rappers dress, from the way they wear their hats to their shoes, from top to bottom. I'm a bit more of a conservative dresser. But I grieve at the association between this type of dress and blackness. But that's just because it's what we get in the media. But wait, this does not involve institutional racism, where many black people often dress in what everyone else dresses in, especially when they're at work, and are the victims of ill treatment. So, in truth, I think it has nothing to do with dress at all. Is it what I may call the stereotype black features? Bigger everything, lips, bums, hips, etc. Now, I hope I'm not being biased here, but such features engendered a whole range of, let's say, reactions. They may be seen as sexy, they may be seen as funny. I still don't know how they have engendered dislike or hate. If bigger lips and hips should yield hate in anyone, it should also be in those who possess them. And sometimes there are people from all races with all these features, and yet they don't invite the same sort of negative attention. But then, who cares? We all like and dislike all parts of our bodies for different reasons. Sometimes I can't stand my big lips because it makes my chewing more noticeable. But again, I love my big lips because, I don't know, smiling, kissing. In truth, I don't care. And if I don't care, then I don't see any reason why anyone else should. Besides, we may be misguided in referring to these features as exclusive, as I've said. Many people have them, just not in the same sort of, just not as prevalent in other races. I don't think it has anything to do with physical features. Surely it's about black behavior. There are few things more annoying than sharing public transport, with those annoyingly loud Nigerians who don't seem to be aware that others can hear the conversations from the back of the bus and don't want to listen to them. Or that stereotype big mama receptionist with an attitude who shows that she doesn't quite appreciate what customer service is. Or those black guys at the club who are too flirty for their own good and may be a bit awkward at times. I know, right? Those Nigerians, I tell you. And have I even got into crime? The statistics in countries, especially like America, historically speaking, black people are more involved in crime in worrying numbers. Many also come from lower social classes and so, aren't seen to be the ideal citizen. If it's those loud black people on the bus that we have trouble with, they annoy me too. And you haven't seen the half of it. Try going to one of their parties or one of their churches. Loud, loud, loud. But it is, something very artificial. Sometimes I want to make a deal with these managers and bosses who prevent promotions of black people and stuff and say, fine, stay away from those people if they annoy you on buses, if you really, really don't like it, or in social situations. As long as it doesn't stop you from seeing how good they are at their jobs or their strength in character or something like that. I don't think they'd care. They would accept such a proposal. Besides, that's not the point, is it? Seriously speaking, we've all promoted people or seen people promoted, favored by the top, who are far more annoying than everyone else, but were just good at what they did, or at least made a good impression of themselves. Many black people are among these. We all learn to ignore those awkward people at the club, black or otherwise. And those crime statistics and the social class factor still do not explain racial prejudice to me. If you see a black person committing a crime, by all means arrest them and charge them. But if two people commit the same crime, one black and one white, I still don't understand how race dictates differential treatment. If crime is more prevalent in black communities, then by all means deal with the problem. It's a crime. Not that some criminals are black, it's just that it's a crime. You have to deal with crimes, whoever the perpetrators are. And regarding that black mama with all that attitude, Maybe she is just not suited to customer care. Maybe it's not a race issue. But before you fire her, I'd like to take a swing at what I think she may be good at. Human care. She may not like the way you talk to her, but I'd bet if a time came when you really needed her, she'd be there for you. And that's when, considering that she may not even like you. She's probably a mother, an aunt, a mentor to many who are more than just family, carrying their burdens, and would willingly share and carry yours, if they're genuine enough. For that reason, she may be an unconventional receptionist, but she may also be your guardian angel, your confidant, the person you actually needed in times of help. I've covered the main candidates for explanations for racism as far as I have seen them. There are reasons, but they are just not good enough. In fact, I've argued that some are just false. Think about it. Blackness. It is not about being black, but about other things. But these other things aren't legitimate. So what does it come down to? Well, maybe it's just that. The darker skin, being black, or more strictly speaking, brown or various shades of brown. And I just can't understand what is wrong with it. Does it hurt the eyes? Does it smell? How can that be a cause of preventing someone from getting the promotion they deserve or making them a target of institutional abuse? How can it be the indicator of inferiority that caused, well, in my case, my boss to treat black staff with such disdain, or for police to devalue a life? Again, does it smell? Does it hurt the eyes? Please tell me the reason. I would set it straight if I could. If there is something wrong, tell me. I do not want any trouble. I do not want, sometimes I even despise, positive discrimination and these race quotas. I don't want this whole Black Lives Matter where what matters is being black and not being alive. What I want is the exact opposite. To go for that job interview or walk into that office, be approached by the police, to meet you as a girlfriend or boyfriend, or meet your parents or that bouncer at the club, to walk into that aeroplane or onto that bus, and for you to see my skin color and for it not to matter. Use all the other reasons if you wish, as long as you know that it has nothing to do with being black.